And some thrive in a traditional setting and wouldn't be able to learn in the kind of chaos that we learn in. But for me, that's the best way for me to learn. I can't learn sitting in rows, you know, the hand raising thing just doesn't work.
We're trapped in systems that we can't think beyond. So I look at it as in terms of you know, only thinking about, we only know what we know, and we can't think outside the box. And so that seems to be a barrier to really recognizing what we transform to.
We've been the same for so long that any change is revolutionary or different, is bad. When you make a change, you have to say, you know, look, here's the way that we're doing things now. Education has to evolve.
Transformation to me is a very interesting word, because I think transformation is just simply improvement, but we have this political organization that's saying transformation is something new, when really, to me, it's about people growing and teachers growing and empowering students.
When you're in the backcountry, sometimes you don't know the person that's hurt. Maybe you come across a party that's hurt. That happens a lot on big mountain climbs or rock climbing. There's other people at these areas and you don't know who it is. Sometimes you don't know the group of the people that you're with that well. So I asked you to do some research last night and just prepare a very quick statement.
I think it's a mindset. It's a mindset around caring for kids. It's a mindset around the connection you want to have between a student and a teacher.
One of the things that I think that the Department of Education is really focused on is helping improve instruction for kids. How do we support schools so that they can do a better job of instructing kids?
There's so much content that kids are asked to have in this millennia. You know, it's very overwhelming. So life lessons become very important in terms of learning how to learn, learning how you learn best.
I think most important for us is just to understand how they learn best. You're going to have to know what your skills are and how do you assess them yourself.
You have to build a sense of community, you have to build a sense of something greater than the self, but you also have to focus on the individual as well. One of the things we focus on is community and building a sense of community, but also not diminishing the individual.
So they learn a language from feedback they've gotten, self-assessment, peer assessment, teacher assessment, that says, here's areas where you're really strong and here's areas where you need to grow. And their portfolios are based on those same learning realms. Those are the folders they have.
Vermont is a perfect state for reform. For one reason, it's size. There's 60 principals, most of them know each other. You can get from one school to the other in 3 hours. It's easy to get around in the state.
We are taking the most serious look I've seen us take of it in the past. We're seeing the same reports that have generated over the last 10 years reappear in a different form, but they're not becoming shelf documents.
I've been in education for 33 years, and this is probably the most important time in education that I've been involved. And I say that because I think it's not a matter of when we make changes to become better at what we do. It's a matter of how quickly we can make changes. It's not an option anymore.
As long as we are not targeting teachers and making them feel comfortable in the fact that we do need to change and that we need to help provide them with the pathways to get there, I think is key.
How do we create a flexible educational system so that it meets the needs of a really wide range of students, and at the same time have that flexible system be accountable to certain outcomes?
You have language issues as well as socioeconomic issues. You have to look closely at how am I most effective in reaching students. One of the guiding questions we try to look at is, how do I know my students are learning?
Really, there's the components of how do you make education meaningful for students, and how can students demonstrate what they learn in purposeful ways. And that could look like anything. You know, it doesn't have to be a hike up Mount Washington. It doesn't have to be a student making a cooking show when she's talking about nutrition.
You got to educate the kids you have, not the kids you want to have. And I think that all of our educational institutions need to work hard on meeting the kids where they are, but not getting caught up in having a relationship with a student. You need to have a relationship with their potential.
You put all the kids in that over here and give them a funny name, just like the Bluebirds and Robins in first grade, and we all know what those names mean. And they're pre-programmed not to be successful.
How are kids going to be ready for what they're facing when they get out of here? And I think that's one of the big keys that we want to work towards in the future, is not just answering test questions and getting the right answer. What happens when you don't have the right answer?
You can't standardize kids, so I don't know why you should standardize schools. Like, I feel like teachers are under such strict rules and regulations that they don't have any flexibility. Like, it's almost like they're almost forced to teach this, and what they're forced to teach isn't really interesting kids.
The thing that we know is that all individuals learn in different ways. The thing that is hardest to address and change is how do you take the system that we have and the way that that system is developed, which is really not catered to the individual, and start to develop it so that it is catered to the individual.
It's as teacher as coach, basically. So I do think of myself as a coach. I don't walk into the room and know everything that's going to happen or every bit of learning that's going to happen that day. I'm hoping that it will come from them, and I do a lot of sharing from each other.
Kids can learn a lot of different ways, and they all have a strength, and we can meet those strengths without textbooks or without lecturing. That we just need to get to know our students better.
For me, I know I really have trouble learning if I'm not interested in it, and I don't see a reason to learn it. That, I've been good at math, but I don't really see the need to know all these different formulas because I don't see how they're going to help me in real life.
Students don't come to school to sit and do nothing. Nobody wants to be bored. Nobody wants to be unengaged. They just need to find that piece for them that has meaning.
I think what happens in the larger school setup is that they don't get as much one-on-one action, and they don't feel like they can really make their desires known or come to a meeting where they can make their desires known.
Adolescents, a lot of them have an innate sense of wanting to have this identity and be heard and to be oppositional to certain kinds of authority. And so to the extent they're not heard, they exercise their voice in other ways.
To be honest, I feel like we do have a voice that's not being heard. There are a lot of students that would like something different, but don't want to ask or don't know how to ask for something different.
If you lend your ear to student voice, they have a lot of ideas. The power of the situation here at Harwood is that we have a lot of adults who will listen to them and include them, and actually it happens here in a very systemic way. So those ideas can bubble up in a very, very quick way.
It's working together that have passion for learning and have engagement because they're curious about what they're learning about. Students and teachers working together is critical. When it's one teacher acting as the sole proprietor of knowledge, giving the information to students, it doesn't really work very well.
It's not hard to find strengths in any student. When you give them a forum where they can soar, it's going to come out pretty quickly. And then you put a group in a position that is stressful, where students have to rely on each other's strengths. Oftentimes that student that has the reputation as being the tough guy or the troublemaker, they have something that's so vital to the success of that program that they actually see worth in themselves. And that's got to be one of the most magical things that we see.
Want to help create opportunities where whether it's your hands or your feet or your brain, where you're using them differently, and we're able to combine different areas of focus like arts and math, or history and English, or science and math.
When students feel successful in one area, you can build on that success in others. And I think that happens in two ways. I mean, one way is that any success breeds success, and you feel better about yourself, feel better about school.
In high school, it's all about finding yourself. Like, you need to find your boundaries, your limits. You really need to push those limits once you find them. And I think it's important to compete with yourself and not compare yourself to others.
Be defined by how successful is a student in realizing his or her potential, and recognizing that, you know, education is a journey. It doesn't end because you're in 12th grade or 16th grade when you graduate high school.
It all starts with aspirations. The idea, the expectation that you can achieve great things regardless of what your passions or your background is.